Morning, everyone, or afternoon, as it may well be indeed. It is my great pleasure to welcome to the couch this afternoon, Mala. How you doing?
Yeah, nice.
How you finding the academy?
Yeah, it's an amazing experience because, again, I'm just going straight in, yeah.
Yeah, do it.
Because technology seems to be separating everybody further and further away from actual kind of like human connection. So I think whenever people from different parts of the world can kind of get together to kind of share ideas, share music, share whatever in a positive way, then it's definitely a blessing for everybody. So, I feel really privileged to be here to experience what's been going on.
Yeah, I saw you late night last night getting into it, making beats upstairs. And
yeah, these lot were so hungry I couldn't get into a studio myself. Or every time I was walking around, like all these guys were just working. So yeah, good energy last night.
Well, it's a real pleasure to have you here in Barcelona today. Thanks
Thank
for taking the time to join us.
No, thank you.
For those of us in the room maybe that aren't familiar with everything that you've done, could you maybe introduce yourself and fill us in?
I haven't done much, but my real name's Mark. Everyone calls me Mala, nickname from when I was younger. I set up a record label with a couple of friends back in 2004 now. The label's called DMZ. I set up with two of my friends, Koki and Lofa. From having the record label, there was nowhere to play the music, so that's why we set up Our Night. Since then, I set up another label because I was getting sent so much music by people around the world, and I found myself kind of in a position where I was able to maybe get other people's music to be listened to, and that's really why I started up my Deep Medi label. Through producing music, I got asked to play music, so that's why I play my music out. It was never an intention to become a DJ or anything like that. That's kind of what I've done, I guess, briefly over the last few years.
And where are you from?
I'm from South London, a place called South Norwood.
Okay. And how long have you been making music for?
I started making music probably about 99, 2000, and that was mucking around with one of my friends. He had a laptop which he had Fruity Loops on. His laptop was so like messed up, we couldn't actually save anything on there. So we just used to like write music all night, and then we'd record it onto tape cassette, and then that would be the tune, and then the next day we'd do the same thing. But it wasn't really until about 2000 I got the music program Reason, and I found that when I got the program Reason, it kind of changed everything in my production, because I found that the translation from whatever was in my mind, I could quickly kind of like lay it down and get it out. And I think as a producer, or anybody creative, it's sometimes you can be bogged down by like the technical side of things, and that can obviously stop the flow of like creation. So for me, using a program like Reason at that time just felt really natural. So yeah, from using Reason in 2002 is when I kind of decided that I was going to buy a good pair of studio monitors, because I was just using kind of like my hi-fi monitors before that. And yeah, so 2002 is when I decided to take like writing music seriously, really. Yeah.
And when were you able to make it a living?
I got made redundant. I was doing youth work for about 3 years. And the problem is with the government, and with like a lot of governments, they set up things with this like, kind of, in my opinion, like false intention. So, what they'd done was they set up a music kind of workshop area where kids could come down, and we'd teach them logic and reason and things like that. And I funded it for a few years, and after, what happens is they take away the funding, so then you have to get funding for yourself. So that's kind of what happened in this case, and I got made redundant, and this was last March, and that's when I decided everything was going on anyway, and that's when I decided that I'd probably give it a go and see if I can do this thing kind of full time, Yeah.
So just to give us an idea of where your head's at right now, have you got something current that you're working on musically that would...
Not current, I can play you something that's relatively new, I think. might have not heard.
It doesn't matter if it's brand new. Something to give people an idea.
No, I'm gonna play this one. It's not a new one, it's an older one, but still.
Cool. When was that made?
2005 actually. 2005, but I only started playing it the last 8 months or something.
So, do you consider the music that you make dubstep?
I don't really consider it anything a lot of the time, because a lot of the time I don't really like. It's not like I really make something and then I spend like ages listening to it after it's made. And a lot of the time when I'm writing stuff, I kind of have like doubts about what I do anyway, so I don't really call it dubstep or anything. But I guess generally it's called dubstep because of media and the kind of need that society seems to have to put everything in a box or on a shelf,
But that said, there is a very strong scene, certainly in the UK, and I'm seeing worldwide, as you are, of producers that are naturally gravitated towards each other. And I mean, what are the advantages and disadvantages of having a genre or a movement as powerful as what's being called dubstep is worldwide at the moment?
Well, I guess the benefits are definitely that bringing people together that may be like-minded in certain ways. Back in like 2004 or whatever, the handful of people that were doing things then, it was very, very tight. So you used to see each other all the time. In that respect, it's really positive. And as well, before there was this real sense of what dubstep was, when it was kind of like, what is it or whatever. I think there was in people's mind, maybe the listener as well as myself as a producer, you're not kind of confined to these like limitations in your mind, And now dubstep has seemed to have become something. So therefore, if you can't tick that box, that box, that box, and that box, then maybe it's not dubstep. But I don't know really what dubstep is anyway. So for me, I just try and keep doing what I'm doing, regardless of everything else, you know.
Well, it seems, you know, that a lot of dubstep or music that is played at dubstep dances is all around the 140 BPM.
Yeah, I think
mark.
there's always been a similar tempo. I think it started a little bit slower than that, maybe 138.
Yeah.
But I think 140 seems to be like the set speed now. I guess it makes it interesting, you know, sometimes working on one tempo because, you know, by manipulation of space and sound and time, you can make something at 140 sound really kind of like sluggish, and as Loafer does brilliantly, like on the half step, or you can have something that's more kind of percussive, you know, and that makes something feel like it's maybe faster than 140. So, you know, just time.
Have
and
you got
space.
the anti-war dub?
Yeah.
Talking of percussive, is it too early to draw that one?
No, you can play it. Yeah, this was a kind of a bit of a funny track really, because I actually finished it about 9 months after I started making it, and I originally made it. I started in 2004. I think I actually made it in 2004. And basically, I was thinking back then of doing some sort of album or something like that. And then, yeah, this was going to be kind of like a little bit of an interlude in between tracks. And it just started off with the bass line and Spain G's voice, you know, "We don't want no war tonight." And then about 9 months later, I just remember turning it on to have a listen to it. And the kind of boom scat, the beat just come to me, and yeah, this was kind of it afterwards.
And this is on DMZ.
Yeah, this is number 7. No, this is DMZ number 7. But we pressed a certain number of these, but I never want to repress this record again. So these are the only ones.
Is that still a big tune for you everywhere?
It's kind of crazy sometimes the reaction it gets when I play it. I kind of started playing it again recently, last couple of shows, but I hadn't played it for quite a while before then because it's kind of an old track, and sometimes you got to try and keep things moving forward, or you get like stuck. Sometimes I've been stuck, feel like I'm stuck with the same set for ages.
Yeah.
So sometimes you got to force yourself to play other records. But yeah, it's kind of strange because like I said, kind of how the track started, and kind of I always find that music kind of has a life of its own once you kind of put it in like the public domain, because you never know really where it's going to go and how people are going to kind of react to it. But yeah, this track's brought me a few good, like, kind of interesting and crazy memories.
And it's been an appropriate week for you to be here. Obviously, we heard from Maurizio on Tuesday.
Oh, yeah.
We had the absolute dons in yesterday. I mean, in terms of the lower end of frequencies in music, we've definitely been spoiled this week. Can you talk to me about the influence of dub itself on you as a human and also as a musician?
Yeah, I think my first experience of like dub really was listening to like jungle, because I think jungle really is just like a London dub, in a sense. The techniques that a lot of the guys are using with the delays and the reverbs and stuff, and the certain space in certain tracks. It wasn't like kind of like gnarly basses. A lot of it was that space between like the high frequencies, and then there's like this gap, and then you've got like the sub-low frequencies. So when I was growing up listening to jungle kind of and hardcore, like 92, 93, 94 was the year really, like jungle they made certain tunes that no one's ever going to be able to kind of like recreate. Just like listening to those frequencies like day in, day out, because that definitely was the music that kind of changed my way of thinking about sound, because before then, you listen to like Shabba Ranks or whatever, but then when I listened to jungle, it was kind of like, it's coming from a different place, I felt, and it kind of totally related to the environment that I was surrounded by. So for a youngster, that was kind of like a bit of a, it was a really big thing. So yeah, the jungle, the frequencies, listening to it every day, listening to it on my headphones and stuff. I guess when I got to making music, that's just how I thought sound should be. Yeah. I thought all things had like this, kind of like weighty low frequency, because a lot of the music that I listened to, which was jungle. And then listening to jungle, I think because of the sound was so diverse and it was so influenced by so many different styles of music. From that, you start listening to like rare groove, you start listening to like acid things, or you're listening to jazz, hip hop, whatever. I think a lot of my mind expansion, if you want to say, came from listening to jungle. Yeah.
I mean, for me, I see a lot of similarities in the excitement and evolution, and what's going on in dubstep now is reminiscent of that exciting time in jungle. Do you think that, like, it's fair to say that both jungle and dubstep are music genres that could only have come from the town that you live in?
I guess so, in a way, because that's kind of what's happened, But I can definitely understand why, I listen to certain tunes, maybe something like by Koki or whatever, and I can kind of totally understand like where he's coming from, because, London is what it is, it's a melting pot for many, many different things, around the world. So, growing up, it was always around different cultures, which was a really, kind of like a blessing, really, because I think it allowed me to be quite, open-minded about all kind of peoples. As well as it's a constant struggle in London. Everything seems to be quite complicated for some strange reason. And everything's expensive, The food's kind of not too good, but you've got to pay a lot of money for it. And then when you want a really good something to eat, you have to pay ridiculous amounts of money for it. So I think, for me, growing up in London, I didn't come from a wealthy background or anything, my dad's a painter and decorator, my mum's a hairdresser, they worked hard for looking after me and my brother. So I always kind of saw that life, in as much as it's beautiful, it was a real struggle, a lot of the time. So I guess that's why the sound I write, I think, is like it, because I think there's a kind of like a bit of a combination between that kind of struggle and kind of like a freedom, like a hope as well, you know. Even though it's kind of dark, it's not like evil or menacing kind of dark. It's more of just like life is, you know, kind of quite dark in certain places. Not necessarily like outwardly, but inwardly, you know what I mean? Yeah.
So when you first started making music, did you have loads of jungle that you just needed to get out of your system?
Yeah, we spoke yesterday, innit? Like, when I started writing music on Fruity Loops, me and my friend Mandeep, and my friends Mandeep and Gary, they're like just like sick kind of like 94, like jungleists basically. And yeah, when we started writing music, we thought that we could kind of like rejuvenate like 94 jungle. So we, you know, we'd chop up breaks and use them in Fruity Loops. So yeah, I needed to get that out of my system. But I think when I look at the music that I was writing in, you know, the early stages before anybody heard what I was doing, it's definitely of the similar vein, you know, the kind of the frequencies, the kind of the moods, the kind of like the melancholy kind of vibe. So yeah.
Have you got any music of that era that first blew your mind from like 94?
Yeah, I got one old Tom and Jerry record actually I found.
Okay.
Your body.
Play another one. Oh, do it. Where was that? SW1? Yeah. Oh, mate. You know how young I was then? I had to fucking do the whole fake ID shit. Yeah. Everyone had those bomber jackets with AWOL on the back.
These guys are the guys that do the Four Heroes stuff. They did this.
That's Digo and Mark
Yeah.
from Four Hero. Went on to be
label,
Four Hero.
the Tom and Jerry label. I wanted to play you something else. It's from from '94 as well, and it's Darren J and GQ at an old London dance called AWOL. I think this was at SW1, innit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then he went to ministry.
Over the page for the next chapter, the one that they call the Darren J, live inside the ride. Darren J, come across.
This is recorded in the club, right?
Yeah, this is live, yeah.
And we don't bother. But you're going around and picking up just like you run.
With the intro. Intro of the one that they call the Darren J. All massive, you ready?
Yo, I've got to get Really? You recorded them in? Wow. Somewhere on a black side of all their templates. Oh wow.
Intro the Darren J. Wicked my selector as he steps in. Cool and calm, the one and the Darren J feeling the way. Listen to the first DJ as we cheer up the sound.
Yeah, like 94 was just all about jungle, as far as I was concerned in London. You know, all my kind of circle of people that I grew up with. This is what we used to do, and get told off at school for, because you'd have your Walkman in your blazer, you'd have your headphones going up your sleeve while you're doing your work, and then you get a clap on the back of your head by the teacher with the books, and yeah, it was jungle, man.
One thing that was obviously jungle was very much about the dub plate and very much about cutting and always having tunes that no one else had and all that kind of stuff, and just about the physical thing of needing to get records that were being made on DAT onto a plate. But I think in your scene now, or the scene that you're associated with now, is pretty much the only scene that I know of that is so serious about cutting. Still, in the age when you can get CDRs and Serato and everything. Why is that so important to you still?
It's important to me because I really learn a lot from the whole process.
Actually, we should just say, does everyone in the room know what an acetate is? A dub plate. It's totally cool. I just want to show you. Is there anyone that doesn't know what that is? Okay, great. Well, basically half the records down here are acetates, which is not vinyl. It's well, you can explain. Maybe you can.
Yeah, it's made from acetate. Basically, what we do is when we've finished making music, we take it to transition, which is the mastering studio. I would say, a massive percentage of the people that I know doing this sound get their stuff not only cut onto dub plate but also mastered. Yeah, it's kind of like it gets put on a cutting lathe, and I think the needle used is made from like a diamond, and it basically, while the CD is playing or the DAT is playing, it kind of cuts the groove lives into acetate, which I'll give you to kind of like pass around, and yeah, and then from that I am able to play what I made in my studio on turntables, which is how I prefer to play music to people and play music for myself. So I'll give you a copy of like both a record and a dub plate, and you can kind of see the difference in the two.
Is this on? Yeah. Can I ask how much does it cost cutting a dub plate in like one of the big cutting houses in London right now?
I think it varies. I've only ever used one cutting house in London. I've never inquired about prices of any others, so I'm probably not the best person to ask. But on a 10-inch dub, which is like this, you can pass it around. You're on a 10-inch dub. I think you're looking probably about 30. Huh?
You can take the mic with you.
Oh, yeah, you're probably looking at like probably about £30.
Right.
And the 12-inch dubs, you're looking at about £50 a dub. So it's
So when a blank CD costs about 5 pence, and to cut 2 tunes on one 12-inch dub costs £50, you got to really want to do that.
yeah.
You've got to really want to cut that record. Is there something to do with the
It was
sound?
kind
Is
of
it
like that.
cultural thing?
It was kind of like cutting things onto dub plate. For me, was always made me have a kind of like a real objective mind about what it was I was doing, not kind of having a fantasy like, oh, I've just made the best tune in the world, but really listening to what it is that you've done, kind of like sonically, as well. To, you know, I had to be 100% comfortable with it, because you know, even now, you know, it's expensive to cut dub plates, man. So you have to be 100% certain that this is what you want to cut, unless I guess you're a millionaire and you can cut all day long. But I'm not.
How many times can you play it before it wears out?
There's always this like myth that you can only play a dub like 10 times before it wears out. But you know,
That's what
I've got some tracks in here. You know, I've been playing on dub. This one, I was playing this tune in 2005, and it's still on dub, and if I play it now, you hear it still sounds fine. It's maybe a bit crackly. What seems to happen first is like the higher frequencies, kind of, you start losing some of the clarity in the higher frequencies. But yeah, I'll pass these around. Can you grab me just a record, and I can give around the three, and you can see the real difference. I'm sure you will be kind of careful with them. Yeah, you can just pass them around if you want. I don't know if you want. If anyone, you can feel the do. I don't know.
Smells pretty good too.
What, the acetate?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I used to love going in transition on a Friday night. Smell the dub plates. I don't know, do any of them smell? Hang on. You're going to think I'm a bit weird, just like sniffing dub plates, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a smell to them, man. Like when you've just cut like a big batch of dubs fresh, and you know, now it's kind of nice because once you cut one dub plate, once you get your first kind of like batch, that's kind of you set really, because you keep just adding to your collection, you know. So, I know it kind of maybe sounds expensive, but if you can make that initial kind of jump and cut yourself 10 tunes, which is, you know, or even 20 tunes, 10 dubs, then you know you're going to be nice. But yeah, the smell when you open your bag when you've got like fresh dubs in there, man.
It's a special smell.
Yeah,
Definitely.
yeah.
Is it all to do with, you know, less is more, forcing yourself to make decisions about things that you really want to hear in this age where I can have 20,000 songs on my Serato and at my fingertips or whatever? You know, is it more about streamlining and taking it back to that, or is it a sound thing? Is it about the mastering and how a dub sounds?
Yeah.
Or is it a cultural thing that you following the lineage all the way through?
I think it's everything, to be honest with you. I do prefer the sound of records or dub plates.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's debatable depending on your opinion. Just kind of like growing up and like, you know, listening and reading about sound system culture, seeing people like Jar Shaka play, seeing people like Groove Rider play, you know, Ray Keith, Kenny Ken, you know, all these guys back in the day, Mickey Finn, like they were all playing dub plates. So when it come to me to do my thing, I thought that's just kind of how it should be done. You know, there was nothing wrong with what those people seemed to be doing back then. For me as well, it goes back to that kind of like community thing in a sense, because by me going to cut a dub plate or people cutting dub plates, it gives the person who's the mastering and the cutting engineer, it gives them a bit of, you know, food on their plate. And I'd rather everybody in this room eat than me just sit here and eat big myself, you know? So I think it's important to kind of keep that kind of them circles going, because that's how we can all kind of like survive and coexist in this world, you know? When everybody's kind of like their individual own island and you feel you don't like need anybody else. I think it can kind of cause problems. But yeah, definitely, you know, cutting dub plates, the sound, again, always come back to the sound, because I do think it generally sounds warmer than a CD. But yeah, just as I said, I thought it always something that had been done, so.
One thing that's definitely noticeable about you is how extreme you are in terms of controlling your music and where it ends up, in the sense that, talking of dub plate, you know, for most of your music, until it makes wax, the only place that you can hear it is from you in a club, you know. And these days the trend is actually, no, I've just made a tune, it's just been mixed, or maybe it hasn't even been mixed, I want to put it out there to as many people as possible, to get my name known to as many people as possible, to make as much noise on the internet as possible, and maybe something will come of it. Your approach is the exact opposite. It's like, you don't give it to anyone and don't speak about it. It's the only way to hear it is to come to the source.
It kind of always felt comfortable for me not to really give out too much of my music. It really, I think, started because when we started making this music, it was kind of like we didn't really expect anybody to like it, because that wasn't the reason why we was making it. You're just making it for personal reasons. So when people started to listen to it, it was great, because, you know, we'd go down to Forward, the sound system in Forward, you know, at Plastic People in London was, you know, is still, you know, a phenomenal sound system. So we'd go and hear our stuff on there. But then I didn't want to give somebody a CD for them to go and listen to it on their iPod or on their laptop speakers, because, you know, a big percentage of what I do is kind of like lower frequencies. That's kind of, I guess, in a way, kind of gels a lot of all the rest of the stuff going on together. So it was really about people listening to the music in what I thought how it should be heard, and also not being misrepresented, because, again, everything has to be put in a box. But I didn't want to be put in a box, so that's why we set up our own record label. We started our own dance. That's why we, you know, I used to run around all the record shops in London and in, you know, up and down the country to distribute our records, because at this time when nobody had a name for it, people saying, what is it? I don't know where to put it. Distributors wanted to put it in with garage, or they wanted to put it in with house, or is it a bit of drum and bass? It wasn't right to do that, you know. So, it's just about being really seeing for what it actually is, rather than, you know, it being misinterpreted.
And has it worked for you, that approach?
But like everything in life has like benefits and like things that kind of can like kind of stall your progression or whatever at the same time. So it works for me, because that's how I feel comfortable. You know, yeah, it works for me.
But I mean, in terms of building up a scene and a club night and a label, and, you know, that's definitely a pretty strong approach to creating an identity.
Well, again, it was about people coming out to the dance, you know, people coming together to like experience and feel that kind of energy, which you can't feel when you're chatting to somebody on AIM or Skype, you know what I mean? When you're having a real conversation with people, that's what's going on. So yeah, for me to play the music that I play, I think it was always about people coming to hear it rather than it being recorded. That's what, you know, we record the DMZ sets. I've got all the DMZ nights recorded from like 2005.
Well, let's go back to Forward, and please explain to everyone what Forward is, and then the influence that had on you as a producer.
Yeah, Forward was heavy for anybody that used to go down to Plastic People, which used to be on a...
It was at Velvet Rooms first, right?
I never went when it was at Velvet Rooms. I only went when it was at Plastic People.
Okay.
And I think that was February 2004. And I went to one of their things in Fabric, because I did a couple of things in Fabric years and years and years ago in Room 3. but I think it was more kind of like dark garage orientated then. But when I went in 2004 in February, I remember it. I've known Hatcher for like a long time, and Hatcher used to be part of Big
Who's
Apple. Hatcher is another guy, in my opinion, that has been instrumental in the development of this dubstep scene, because at a time when there was nothing really going on, he was the guy that was cutting dub plates from Scream and Benga. You know, when them guys were like 15, he was the first one to play, you know, all of our stuff, mine, Cokie, Loafers. And he used to work for a record label called Big Apple Records, which was based inside Big Apple Record Shop, which has a whole heap of history with the jungle scene, as well as other musics. Yeah, so, you know, Hatcher started playing the sound at Forward, and it was that thing, it was dub plate, dark room, big sound system. None of these fancy lights, none of the kind of like unnecessary nonsense that we see in a lot of venues today, where they spend, you know, £1 million on making it look nice, and then when you put a record on the turntable, the sound system is almost embarrassing to actually ask people to come in and pay to listen to it. So, you know, Plastic People, Addy's got it perfect in that spot. And in a way, that was where I can probably say, obviously myself, Scream, Benga, Code 9, all would listen to what we were making. And in a system that's kind of that big, in that kind of space, you really kind of are exposed to your production. So you'd go in there, you'd listen to it, and you know, you could tell instantly what was wrong with it. So then you go back home and then you tweak it, and then, you know, you wait for next month to kind of Hatcher to play your dubs again, and you see if you've made any improvement. At that time as well, there was kind of like a lot of breakbeat garage kind of getting played. That really wasn't my thing, the breakbeat kind of stuff. And I guess that's one of the reasons why we started DMZ, really, the night, because we were getting, you know, we were making all this music. We wanted to hear our music out on a big sound system. And luckily for us, an opportunity come up in a venue which is quite close to where we all live, because we all live in South London, which was Third Base. And it was literally, we got told about the venue space on the Monday. We went to see it on the Wednesday. This was me and Loafer. On Friday, we went back with Cokie to see the venue. We listened to the sound system. We knew it was perfect. It was just a small room, big sound system, no fancy lights or nothing. Then Friday night, we went home after paying the deposit, designed the flyer, put the flyer on the internet, and that was pretty much it. 3 weeks later, the first DMZ night happened, which was March 2005 now.
So at this point, we should introduce who Loafer and Cokie are, and
Cool.
and how you came to work with them.
Well, I've known Cokie since I was about 11, and Pokes as well. We used to go to the same school, so we was always listening to music together, as well as like playing football and other things like that. Loafer I met when I was 15, going on 16, through some other friends. But we just had a kind of like, just I guess a lot of people do with their friends, you know what I mean? Your common thing is that you all love this music, and then from that you find like you may be like-minded in other ways. So yeah, really what we've done, to me, feels like an extension of our bedrooms, really, because we all used to meet up and jam jungle tapes together. So it's just an extension of that.
So DMZ was started by the three of you,
Yeah, that's right.
and it was almost as much of a reaction as to hearing stuff that you didn't like, and wanting to put on a dance where you could just hear only the music that was right for you.
Well, yeah, at that time, because, you know, you might remember yourself, there was a certain time in London where you could go out every night and there was good stuff happening. And it got to a point, I think, where I couldn't go out in London because everything just seemed to be stale. So yeah, I guess that was us reacting to, you know, our circumstances in life.
Mm-hmm. And does this coincide with the first Digital Mystics release?
Yeah, our first Digital Mystics release was in 2003 on Big Apple Records, after Hatcher started playing a track called Pathways that I made, which is kind of...
Have you got something from that era?
Yeah, it's kind of terrible though, man. I can play something early.
So DMZ is a label and a club night,
Yeah.
and Digital Mystics is
Me and Koki.
you and Koki producing together.
Yeah, it's kind of mad because only really in the early stages did we produce together, and then I guess, you know, as you get older, kind of like your life and your circumstances can kind of change. You know, people have families and
Yeah.
people have other work commitments and things like that as well. So we've always had our own studios, but yeah, when we listened to our music together, we always thought that the sound was like Digital Mystics. That's really what we thought our style of music was, digital, and it had the kind of mystical kind of tones going on with it as well. So that's why we called ourselves Digital Mystics. But we were called something else before.
What was that?
It's kind of, we called ourselves Mawo, right? Because I'm Mala, and Koki's name that people don't call him, but we call him, is Wobbler. This goes back to a long story involving drinking quite a bit of Guinness, but yeah, we called him Wobbler, so it was Mala and Wobbler, Mawo. But yeah, when we looked on the internet, actually, I looked on the internet to see if the name had been taken. Yeah. And this is just before we were going to sign a Big Apple record, because we didn't know what to put on the title of the record. And yeah, it was I think it was like some kind of like trance producer was called Mawo, so we thought, now we forget that. And then yeah, we was listening to Rinse FM, drinking we used to sit at the end of a road in drink a Guinness and, you know what I mean, maybe smoke a spliff or whatever, and listen to kind of like Hatcher or Youngster and Rinse FM. And then I remember us talking about what our style of music is, what it is that we're doing, and that's when we said, oh yeah, we kind of do like Digital Mystic style, innit? So that's how that kind of come about. I've got some early stuff from there, somewhere. This is an early one. Did I get my records back?
Yeah, dub plays back.
Oh no, he's got the dubs.
Where are the plates?
No, it's cool, it's cool. All right, cheers. Oh, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Cheers. This was on this was on the first DMZ release, so this was probably made 2003, because we set up the DMZ label in 2004, and it's a track called Chamber Music. Chamber. I'll play you a couple of other things. I think that I have here from that time as well, which was also like stuff that was maybe done by Koki and Lothar as well. So maybe you can see how we kind of all seem to kind of fit together with our sound. I'll play it. Koki.
While we're waiting for that, I've got to tell you that tonight, where is it? Step It Dub. Mark's going to play. Cardo Pusher's going to play. Mushug's going to play. And of course, Mala's going to play as well. That's at the Macarena. And basically, I think it only holds about 80 people. So we represent half the club. Make sure you get there early. I'm sure it's going to be very messy.
This is an early track by Koki, 2004. It came out on the second DMZ release, and it's called Jar Fire.
The principle of Rastafari. The principle of Rastafari. And it out of my life. And it out of my life. The principle of Rastafari. And it out of my life.
That was Koki. I'm going to flip it over on the other side and play you a Lothar tune, which in my opinion changed a lot of what was going on in this thing called dubstep. Because it was more percussive, 2003, 2004. And then Lothar come with this and took out everything and just left in like the basic elements, but layered them in such a way with so, you know, the stuff, his sound just became so physical. Stuff was physical already, but I think this changed a lot of things, man. Yeah.
There are no more barriers to cross. All I have in common with the uncontrollable and the insane, the vicious and the evil, all the mayhem I have caused and my utter indifference toward it, I have now surpassed. My pain is constant and sharp, and I do not hope for a better world for anyone. In fact, I want my pain to be inflicted on others. I want no one to escape. But even after admitting this, there is no catharsis. My punishment continues to elude me, and I gain no deeper knowledge of myself. No new knowledge can be extracted from my telling.
Yeah, that's Loafer in like 2004, man. Making people faint by speakers and that. See it a couple of times up in Leeds, man. A couple of people like pass out by the speaker.
What's the dance you do in Leeds?
Oh, I was really lucky. In 2005, I went and played up at a night called Subdub, which is a night that's been running for 11 years now in Leeds. It's run by a guy called Simon Scott, and the sounds and Iration Steppers. Iration Steppers have their own sound system, which Mark Iration has built. I think the system's been around for about 15 years or something, maybe longer. In my opinion, it's one of the best places to play in the world, just because every time you go there, you never have to worry about the sound. It's not a fancy kind of place. It's just a big room, which is kind of dark, and the vibe's always good up there. So yeah, I played up there in 2005. Not really with any intention or expectation, just kind of quite interested to see like how things were going on in the north of England, because no one had been up there yet.
But what they play is straight up steppers dub,
Yeah,
right?
theirs is roots and rockers and kind of like digital dub as well.
Like what we heard yesterday, a little bit.
Dub, yeah.
Yeah. And so how does a more conservative kind of steppers dub crowd take to what you do? Or is it just a natural
It was kind of an interesting transition, really, because at first I'm not sure, I don't think they were necessarily too in it. Yeah. But I think they seem to be more into the ones that are more dub orientated, because now dubstep is, some things are more kind of like electronic and electro feeling. Yeah. Some things are more maybe techno feeling, but they're definitely feeling the more kind of dubbier side of things. But it's been really nice because we've been putting on dances up there with Simon for almost 2 years now. It might actually be 2 years. But over the time, Mark has constantly kind of like EQ'd the sound system to finally get it to sound perfect for when we go up there and play. So yeah, it's been a blessing to play up in Leeds. Like anybody that goes up there and kind of experiences the night, I think, it kind of changes you when you hear music played on a system of that kind of caliber.
Mm. And talking of tweaking sound systems and EQs and people passing out in front of the speaker, I'm sure some people in this room will want me to talk technical stuff for a minute. what do you use, or what do you start to use if you want to start to get somewhere close to the kind of bass that we're hearing on those records?
I used to use Reason to make my bass lines, and I used to use a subtractor, and used to start off with just a straight sine wave, you know. I know some people had like a little bit of a square wave in, say, like a second oscillator or whatever, but I always use just straight sine, and then with a bit of kind of like EQing and filtering, maybe a little bit of reverb. You just kind of look for. Sometimes I feel like with bass lines, it's almost a little bit like kind of, you know, when you drive in a car and you've got that biting point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's finding that kind of point there where, you know, the sound's kind of ready to kind of come out. And that's the almost like the spot that I look for, depending on kind of like what note of bass that you're going to play.
I overheard Lofa having a conversation with someone for about half an hour about where you low cut, which was kind of over my head. But
40
yeah,
hertz or
I mean,
something.
how crucial is that about where you low cut your,
Well, it depends.
your bass?
I guess it depends to a degree what frequencies are happening.
Yeah.
You know, at the lower
And what
end.
does that mean exactly?
Well, when you're low cutting something, you're cutting off all the lower frequencies. So even though to your ear, you might be able to hear certain frequencies, there's other frequencies that may be coming out of the speakers that you can't actually hear, but it's still creating vibration. And I guess if some of these loose frequencies are still in there, they kind of can make the bass line like sound flabby and that, you know, not much kind of like tightness or control. So I guess to a degree, it's all about like controlling like the scope and the dynamic of like frequencies. And I think when you go into it, it's ridiculous, you know, like we heard the stuff that Ross was doing, you know, yesterday. It's like the levels, man, really, there's levels. You can go in as deep as you want to go. It's just if you're going to take time to really study sound in it, you know.
And do you feel like you've never really heard your record until you've played it on a proper set? Is it hard to really get the full range frequency spectrum when you're making your stuff in your studio?
No, I don't think so. I think in my studio, I bought some nice monitors back in 2002, and I just recently upgraded them about a year ago. And I think generally I've got like a really nice sound in my studio to kind of reference music.
I mean, it seems that in this area of music, you definitely represent the deeper side. I think that would be safe to say. What's the name of your own label?
I set up another label called Medi. I was getting sent so much music from people around the world, and like I said earlier, I found myself in a position where, you know, you can kind of go into a record shop and people would be kind of waiting to maybe hear the records that you're bringing in. And it's kind of related really as well to the youth work that I used to do. I think a lot of record labels that I kind of understand that maybe not around the world, but definitely what I feel in England, they don't really seem to concentrate too much on like developing somebody. They just seem like a lot of the time is like a quick turnaround, but certain things in life take time, you know. So I thought, you know, I thought I'd help try and, you know, bring other people's music that I was feeling forward for people to listen to. That's why, you know, I started up the label Medi. I have some guys from London which are signed to the label. A guy called Gothtrad from Japan. I've just signed some guys from New Zealand. So yeah, and again, it's about, you know, people. It's about people from different parts of the world coming together to create something that's kind of positive.
And how do you run the label? Do you run it in a traditional way of
kind of run it a bit sloppy, man, maybe to some people, because I think maybe a traditional way is maybe a bit more organised than I am. I'm quite spontaneous in that way. I don't have a rota of this, you know, track's going to come out this month. I don't do mail outs, I don't do promos. I'm not trying to sell anybody anything. So that's why I just put the music in the shop when it's ready. I don't feel I need to tell everybody about it because I don't think it's really necessarily something that anybody wants to hear, you know. Yeah, I don't want to force it on anybody. If somebody wants it, then I think often in life it's nice to kind of go on an adventure and discover something for yourself. Kind of gives it a bit more, kind of gives it a bit more meaning.
Have you got anything from the label you want to play us?
Yeah, I can play something.
Maybe we should play something down.
I've got some stuff on there.
What does deep Medi mean anyway?
I suppose it can mean whatever you want it to mean for yourself, really. For me, making music, I don't really think I made dance music as such. For me, music was always like a meditation to take me away from like the stresses of my daily life when I first started writing music. And that's why I guess the slogan on the DMZ flyer, we don't put dubstep on our flyer or on our records, it was just meditate on bass weight, because that's really, I think, what we kind of used to do. So I guess deep Medi is, deep Medi. I just need to check this one, actually. Didn't even change the record. Sorry about that. Sorry, has anyone got like the guys at the back maybe got like a record cleaner or anything?
I doubt it. Maybe. There's one upstairs.
That's alright, I'll just use a t-shirt. I just think like it's kind of important just to stick to what you believe in, you know what I mean, in a sense. You don't kind of be like restricted by and limited by other people's descriptions of what should be. So that's why I do this deep Medi thing. Not for any other reason apart from that. I'll play the other side. This is a guy, Silky, guy from West London, or from Hammersmith. In my opinion, he's an amazing producer, amazing character as well, Silky. silky there. With that silky.
I mean, the correlation with the music you make and straight up reggae and dub is so evident. It was kind of interesting to me that you said that you kind of got into reggae and dub retrospectively through listening to Jungle. Did you not? You didn't have reggae and dub around you growing up? That wasn't a part.
I think I had a lot of different musics growing up around me. So, yeah, I think I had a lot of musics growing up around me. So I was always open to, you know, everything. You go into like your local corner shop that's run by, you kind of, your Indian guy, man, and he'd be playing something like off a film or off one of, his tapes and stuff. And then you might get in a taxi, and it's an African taxi driver, and he's playing the tape from, Africa or something. So I remember growing up, always listening and hearing lots of different kind of palettes of sound. But listening to like dub and reggae and that, it's definitely something that once listening to Jungle, obviously, listen to like Bob Marley or whatever growing up, because that's in most people's households. But I didn't start really learning and hearing about people like, Burning Spear and that until Augustus Pablo, until a little bit later, maybe around kind of like 97, 98. And
right.
I really started listening to a lot of Sizzler. I listened to a lot of Sizzler. And one thing I love about music, and a lot of people say, what music inspired you or how you influenced. It's not always the actual sound itself that is doing the influence, and sometimes it's like somebody's like attitude or way of thinking that might make you start perceiving things maybe differently from how you have been. And I think at that time, listening to a lot of Sizzler definitely made me kind of, stand up a bit straighter as a person within myself. So yeah.
Why?
Just because I think a lot of things that he was kind of talking about, there was just I guess like kind of Rasta seems to have a very clear, vision of what it is they're speaking about and what they believe in, and part of that at that time in my life when I was 17. I definitely could kind of relate to it, the whole thing against the system and Babylon, rare. When you can look at it in many different ways, but when you do actually start looking at the world, certain things are, in my opinion, are clearly obvious. There's problems, serious problems. So I guess it kind of made me look at things in the world with a different eye, in the sense that I'm not just happy to kind of accept what's going on, but I guess I'm going to kind of like question and inquire into what's going on, rather than just ignoring it.
Yeah. So apart from Jungle and therefore reggae, what were you into, like house or techno? Or,
definitely house. Yeah, Larry Heard, obviously Masters at Work. The main kind of guys in house. I was never a big, even now, there's so much music that I like, but half of it I don't even know who made it or what the names of the producers or the tracks are. I was never really like that, kind of like at school as well. I'm more of like a feeling kind of person. If I'm feeling it, then that's enough. I don't need to know the name of everything or, be a human encyclopedia for music genres. I don't really care about that.
I was interested to find out what you think about the more the noisier end of dubstep. There's been a bit of a trend in the last couple of years. There's been some I don't know how to describe it. You could probably describe it better, but the only way I can say it is noisy, more ravey type of dubstep that's been coming out with some of the younger and newer producers.
Oh yeah, well maybe because maybe for the very fact that they are maybe younger and newer, they have a different kind of energy, For me, when I started writing my music, I listened to like this music that had ridiculous amounts of energy. You look at the kind of some of the breaks they were using in Jungle, and you used to go down Metalheads and listen to what they were tearing out down there. So for me, when I got to that point, it was about slowing things down, not build-ups. It was about stripping it down. So I think, everything goes round in circles. So I think it was inevitable that part of this genre dubstep is going to go many different ways, and it might not necessarily be a way that you like or other people like, but it's definitely part of what inevitably happens, right? I think there's noise and there's noise, isn't it? There's something that's done, and it's done well, and you can feel that it's done well. And then there's something that's kind of, you can tell it's an imitation. You know, you've got the replica kit on instead of the full kit with the sponsor on, you know, and all that. So, yeah, I think it's quite distinguishable what's going on, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And on the other extreme of it, there's a record that I actually heard someone else play of yours, that the one I was talking to you about earlier, the extra deep one.
You want an extra deep one?
On the other
I
end
don't know
of
if
the
it's
scale.
extra deep. Maybe that's just your mind.
Yeah, I think it was at the time. But I'd like to hear that one anyway.
Okay. Well, do you want to hear something, like some more up things first?
Sure.
Because I want to play you something that apparently is like noisy, but it's not. It's serious, you know what I mean?
Okay.
It's not the replica. Koki, man, like, I've known Koki for years, and the guy fascinates me still after knowing him for such a long period of time. I'm going to play you a track that he done called Haunted, and he done this track, I think it was in 2005, and I remember him sitting at my car at the end of the road. He's like, yeah, I've done this tune, it ain't finished yet, but have a quick listen to it, it'll be finished next week, and DMZ was like next week. And he played me this tune, yeah, and I just started cracking up laughing, because instantly I kind of heard what it was going to do to people's like minds, just because of what it done to my mind. Anti-war dub, where is it? I think this track as well also was very influential on what was to later happen in this dubstep thing. I hate saying that word, you know. It's always awkward. Like, here's a question though. Like, why do magazines and media all have to always put things in boxes? Like, does anybody? Can anyone like? Maybe we can talk about it. Why it has to be? But is there many benefits from it though? Really, when you check it. But easier in what sense? Easy in the sense that you can pick up like the Sun newspaper and go, this is what's going on in the world because I read this.
Yeah, exactly.
But then that's not actually what's going on.
But most people like just live on a really mainstream, like live on the surface, like they don't look into anything, and they just want to do their daily job and like listen to whatever they're told is cool. Like they don't really care about like where it came from or learning why it's like that or why it's called that. They're told it's cool, so.
Yeah. No, I don't know an answer. I'm just like quite interested to know why. Here you go, brother. Let me give you this mic, man. Oh, cheers. Because, like, I don't know for...
Yeah. Yeah, I was just going to say this little thing that, you know, I know that in Israel, dubstep is really big. I'm from Israel, nice. And dubstep is really big right now. There are lots of, like, all these DJs you've been talking about, they all came, and there's a huge trend following it. And I know a lot of people are just spewing the word dubstep until, you know, you're kind of sick of it, just because everyone's saying, yeah, dubstep this, dubstep that, and not because of the music, just because of the whole, you know.
Because of the word, yeah?
Yeah, because of the word itself, you know, because of everyone saying, yeah, I'm into dubstep now, and dubstep is so, and dubstep this, and dubstep that, but, you know, when I think about it myself, like, why do people give names to all these genres? We're talking about the same thing about the word wonky. That turned out recently, that kind of defined the style of hip-hop beat making. I think it just, you know, we're talking about the style of music, And instead of saying that kind of music, you know, people just give it a name naturally, you know. Instead of us saying like, you know, the style with the bass thing, people just say dubstep.
I just think it creates like limitations for possibilities.
Yeah, exactly.
Happen, and that's fundamentally what I'm getting at, and that's why fundamentally I think it's a problem.
Yeah, it gets people like this music is supposed to have a set of rules, but it doesn't.
No, nothing really has to have rules, you know.
Hey Ma, we met yesterday, Jose. Anyway, you run the label, and you, as far as I understood, you just press the plates. You don't like put many of your stuff like on wax for people to buy and stuff. Is that?
Oh no, I saw there are records that you can buy in shops. We do have like a distribution that, you know, does cover worldwide as far as I'm aware. But in terms of like kind of MP3 releases and CD releases and digital releases like that, it's not an area that we really focus on. There's a few things that are available, but that's it.
But how, since you try to release everything on wax, or there's things that you just don't do it, you just do the plate so you can play and.
There's some things that, you know, were played that we made years ago that won't come out.
And how you manage like to keep the label running, like without really putting out everything so you can like make money?
Yeah, I'm not really trying to make money. So it kind of how much records I put out in a year is really irrelevant. Because I'm not trying to make. Yeah,
but like as you said, you pay like £50 a dub plate. It's not like cheap.
No, it's not cheap, you know. And you know, before, you know, I guess I was, you know, playing shows and doing what I'm doing now. You know, that's the overtime that I used to work when I used to work at, you know, these debt recovery agencies that I used to work at, or Vodafone or wherever I used to work. You know, you'd have to put in the overtime so you could cut your dub plate to then go and play. You know, I guess it just comes down to individual reasons to why you do something.
Yeah,
for me, it was always about, you know, trying to like share sound the way that I thought was best for people to hear sound.
Got it. But it's because I think that like you got a label, you want to release your music, and like it must be a self-sustained business, you know, like you get you make your investment on it, and you make it to make it grow, you know, like so you don't have to have two jobs, one at your label, one at whatever, so you can like support your label your own self, you know.
Yeah, well, you know, we've released a healthier number of records over the last few years. You know, we're still at a very early stage, I feel, in this kind of like recording business. So, you know, we've just managed to get by, you know.
Well, this record is available to listen to.
Yeah.
And to buy.
No, you can't buy it no more.
Wow.
Unless you find it on eBay, but this one is DMZ7, and we pressed, I think altogether we sold 2,000 or 3,000 of them. We did one press and then we did another repress, and that's kind of where it's going to stop. Yeah, this is Koki, a track called Haunted.
So how did that change things?
I think it changed things because of the effect that it had when it first got played. I remember first playing that at DMZ in third base, and it got pull up 4 times, to the point of where on the 4th time it got pull up, I actually didn't want to put like the dub back on the deck. I just wanted to like smash it over my head because it was just like it was just like ridiculous, the kind of the energy. I think you can see with like Croaky's like line of work, I think he's a very like nice example of how that evolved, and you can see kind of like a timeline of what he's been working with this kind of, you know, the LFO manipulation.
When was that tortured?
Tortured? I haven't got tortured on me actually. I might have it still. No, I don't think I have. It might be under Cokie actually. This one's. This is another track by Cokie about a year later called All of a Sudden. Like, these tunes were like made and played at a time where these were the only type of tunes in the set or in the dance whole night that would sound this kind of way. And now you can go to a dance and there's like many versions of this kind of thing going on, which is fine, but only if it's done well, I think.
Have you got the lean forward?
Yeah. I should just maybe play the last one that Cokie's, so you can see a bit of, this is where he's kind of at lately. This is the last one that we put out on DMZ. It's called SpongeBob.
Bonkers. So can we hear one of your tunes now? What's that one called?
That one's called Living Different.
So, for anyone that makes it to London and wants to come and check out DMZ, where are you currently?
Oh, we're still in Brixton at the Mass. We've been doing them. We do them always every other month. It's nice to have that kind of gap in between, you know. So the next one will be November now. Yeah, always the first Saturday of the month. This one's actually the second Saturday of the month, but yeah, it's generally the first Saturday of every other month.
And you're travelling a great deal at the moment, right?
Yeah, for the past, so I'll say it. Yeah, like kind of like it's a problem, but yeah, I am for the last year and a half really. I think I've probably had about maybe about 6 weeks, 6 like weekends where I haven't had a gig in the last year and a half, which is great, but like everything in life, there's always like two sides of it. When you're doing something else gets neglected. So it's always seems like a constant, juggling act to keep everything balanced.
And when you play a tune as deep as that, when you're travelling, how does that go down?
I remember when I first played it when I really noticed how, when I was in New Zealand, I played it, and it really sounded different from a lot of the other things that I played in my set. And it's sometimes I like starting with it. Sometimes it's nice, I'll play it in the middle of my set where I maybe have the set had been maybe up for a little while. You just kind of want to like reset everything and bring things a bit more kind of grounded. And I've sometimes played that, or I have another couple of things that are maybe a little bit similar on that kind of low-key vibe.
And what's the international scene like for you when you travel?
Yeah, it's really interesting just to kind of check out like other people's kind of cultures and see how people kind of get down to what you do in other countries. I don't know whether it's just because, wherever you live, you kind of have all the attachments and you generally think people are maybe more narrow-minded where you live. But I definitely feel that when, I play abroad, people seem to be more open to just listening to sound rather than, I find in London people seem to want a bit more specifically, they're a bit more picky, maybe because there's more events and more labels and more things going on, so they've got more to choose from. But I generally enjoy playing abroad a lot more. I only really like playing at DMZ in London and Forward. When I play at Forward, everywhere else in London I don't really like playing.
Have you got Lean Forward? Talking of Forward.
Yeah.
You got to play that. Hope you don't mind just listening to a lot of music today. I think that's the best way.
Sorry, I should have sorted all these out.
It's all good.
Here we go. This was DMZ12 that come out in 2007. But most of these tracks were played like a year before, just on dubplate, before we released them. I've kind of find like the whole dubplate thing as well was a little bit like an A&R man, kind of did all the work like out in the field, the dubplate, and then, it kind of, after a period of time, it kind of makes sense to put something out. It just kind of feels right, and that's kind of what I've always done, really. I try and do things that feel right, rather than things that feel kind of unnatural.
time to open it out to the floor. Are there any questions? I'm sure there are. Has someone got a microphone, please? It's all right, they got one at the back, Muller.
Hi. You know when you said you're not really trying to make money out of music, don't you feel like sometimes the more you're actually not trying to make money is when you actually do start making money?
Yeah, life is kind of funny, and sometimes like how, yeah, maybe so.
It's like the more integrity you put into your music and the less you kind of let people get involved and you just stick to what you believe in, then eventually like people will kind of come around to you and then you end up making more money than if you kind of gone with a big label in the beginning and or let people get involved in the first place.
Yeah, maybe, maybe so. I don't really know the answer to that. I can only really speak from kind of how I've done what I've done. I think that for myself, it was more of a like a right place, right time, right circumstances that led me to where I am now. Not because I was consciously thinking I don't want to make money. Obviously, we all need money in this world to kind of put food on our table and stuff. But that definitely wasn't my meditation on why I've ever done music, because music started way before I started making music, for myself. So it's just really more of an extension of going deep into what I'm into in regards to sound and the way I want sound to be played. Is why I do what I do. I'm not trying to make money,
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. And obviously, like dubstep's kind of like the in thing at the moment. So have you had like kind of the more commercial kind of people like try and get involved with what you're doing just because it's seen as like the cool thing going on at the moment?
I don't think I have necessarily directly. I think over the years I've been quite open in my opinion of like press and things and major record labels and stuff. So maybe they kind of got my vibe. So maybe that's why I'm not approached by any major record label in that respect. But through the music just being there, some things have happened. For example, I got in from from work a few years ago, 2006, and I found an email in my inbox from Universal Pictures, and they wanted to use a couple of my tracks for a Hollywood film. So yeah, I guess it kind of can happen, but it kind of things I think can go in many different places when you're kind of least expecting it, and that's definitely seems to have what's happened for me. I've kind of over the years I've met people who I've really respected as musicians, and it's just all been through sound really. And like I said, when you put something that you do, which is maybe personal to you, in the public domain, it almost has a life of its own. And where it takes you, you can never know.
Please join me in saying thank you, Mala.